So these theories will make you question everything. And remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. Let's check them out.
So, let's take this premise. I don't live in Texas and not clear about Texas law, but I'm going to take your word for it. Okay, you go to prison as a felon, do all of your time, and after all your restitution is paid, and after all your parole is done, then you're allowed to vote. Okay, but the former president could be tried and convicted of a felony, be in jail, get voted in as president, be allowed to leave prison and run the country. And while he's running the country, could potentially pardon himself of the very crime he just got let out of jail for, with time still remaining. So either way, it still don't make sense. Nice try though. Talk to you soon. Peace. So,
wouldn't the 14th Amendment come into play with him trying to everything? And I haven't been up on everything that's going on. Like, I have my moments when I want to be into politics, but after a while, it drains you. All the back and forth, all the slandering and this, that, and the third. And it just becomes too much for me. So I have to take a break from it. So it's been a while since I looked into everything that's going on. You know what I mean? It's all just frightening to me at the end of the day that we're actually dealing with this stuff. That's why I posed the question the other day. How do y'all think other countries view us? You know what I mean? And I know we shouldn't care, but I just want to know, like, what do y'all think the consensus are about us?
Well, breaking news, y'all. A grand jury in Washington today decided to indict President Trump on 4 charges, 3 of which are conspiracy to interrupt an official proceeding, conspiracy against the American people. Oh my gosh, it was a 45-page indictment. Trump has told us in the previous days that he expected to be indicted. But there's word going around that if he, wins the presidency in 2024, he can pardon himself. And since this is the first time in history this has ever happened, there's no rules against it. Join us live to talk about this. This is absolute.
See, this is why I'm paying attention to it. You know what I mean? Because I want to see how all of this is going to play out. How is this going to end? How is this going to play out? Everybody's watching right now. So they're about to set a standard some kind of way.
So are convicted felons allowed to vote? If you have a felony, if you have a criminal record, does that disqualify you from voting? This is something that I see all the time on the internet. Seems to be a lot of misconstrued information out there, but I'm going to go ahead and let you know. I'm from the state of Tennessee. I caught a felony in 2013. I did 3 years on state probation. I completed my state probation, and this is the experience that I went through. I'm allowed to vote. What you're not able to do is vote while you're on parole or state probation. When you make it through your terms and conditions of your probation and they discharge you, they also give you paperwork for you to take to some place and register to vote. You're allowed to vote. I never went and registered to vote. They gave me the paperwork that I needed to do it, but I just don't really give a shit about voting, so I never took the time to go do it. But to make a long story short, yes, convicted felons are allowed to vote as long as they've completed the terms of their parole or probation. So are convicted felons allowed to vote?
Yeah, I always thought that felons weren't allowed to vote, but hearing this gentleman before, a few other people that I've heard before, it was made clear to me it was based on their terms. So I wonder if you've served. I haven't spoke to a person that's talked about this who served time. You know what I mean? That's who I want to hear from next. I've heard from people who've been on probation, but I want to hear from someone who served time. How does that play out as well? Is it the same thing for them as well? That's my biggest question now.
Serious question. Why can't felons vote? Make it make sense, all right? We were always told taxation without representation is wrong. That's what we were taught back in school in history that this country was founded on. And basically what that means is you have to follow these laws and rules set forth by this government, but you're not represented by it. So that's wrong. If someone did a prison stint and they did 20 years, they served their time, they're free and clear, they're off parole, why don't they get the right to vote? They served their time, they paid their debt to society. Why are they not allowed to vote? I don't care what you did, violent or not. If you paid your time and you served your sentence, you should be able to vote. Give me a logical reason why not. Serious question.
That's my thing. If you repaid your debt to society, you broke the law, you had to serve your time, you did that. When you come back, you should be able to have your rights back, and voting should be one of those things. I agree. I don't see why a person shouldn't be allowed to. They still have to follow the laws set forth by those. So why not be allowed to vote after your terms and everything are completed? That part I don't get. Make that one make sense to me. I understand exactly what he's saying.
Felons not being able to vote in the United States of America was done by design. It's all by design to limit the vote of the people of the communities of color, the people of color in this country. You do away with slavery. Now all of a sudden you can't own people of color anymore. So you limit their rights to vote. You tell them they can't vote. Then they fight for their right to vote and they get their right to vote. So you need to figure out what the hell it is you're going to do. You've got this criminalized substance out there, marijuana, that both sides use equally. Both white people and black people use relatively equally. But what you do is you concentrate your efforts on pursuing, apprehending, charging, trying, and incarcerating just the people of color for that, and you wind up putting generations of people behind bars. You charge them with felonies so that when they get out of the prison system, they're not allowed to vote. You create a school-to-prison pipeline for people of color. You make sure you lock up as many of those people as you possibly can and slap them with a felony, and then you've accomplished what you can't accomplish through other legislative means. You have now limited the vote of the communities of color.
Well, yeah, think about that. How do y'all feel? Now, when we talk about the prison system and how it is by design, you can't help but think that it's geared towards certain demographics, correct? You know what I mean? That doesn't mean I'm sitting here saying people shouldn't be held accountable for their actions. Never that. I'm always the person I say that to my kids all the time. Accountability. If you do something wrong, don't look for somebody to save you because of where you come from or where you grew up at or what you know what I mean? Who you are, the color, all of that type of stuff. No, be accountable for your actions. What you did. Don't look for that. Stand up on your own too. You know what I mean? But thinking about the prison system and different things like that, the history to it, we can't look away from. So that's my thing. You know what I mean? But that, along with accountability, is my thing.
Mississippi is permanently stripping voting rights from people convicted of some felonies. And this is in violation of the U.S. Constitution's ban on cruel and unusual punishments. Under the Mississippi Constitution, people convicted of 10 specific felonies, including bribery, theft, and arson, lose the right to vote. To get their rights back, people convicted of any of the crimes must get a pardon from the governor or persuade lawmakers to pass individual bills just for them. 2 judges on the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ordered the Mississippi Secretary of State to stop enforcing this on people convicted of specific crimes, including murder and forgery. If the ruling stands, tens of thousands of people could regain voting rights, possibly in time for the November 7th general election. Mississippi is permanently stripping voting.
Wow. Do we have any? I gotta look into that one and see. You know what I mean? That's very interesting. If you have felonies, then you will not be allowed. That's crazy to me. You should, once you're done, again, like I've been echoing, once you're done, but some people are okay with felons not having the right to vote. Some people are okay with that. I think this should be continued to be discussed.
Ranking Member Raskin, you weren't proposing that we go back when you extolled the virtues of allowing people who weren't citizens to vote. because they own property. You're not suggesting to go back to those rules, are you?
No, no, I was just trying to explain the history of it because for most of our history and in most of our states, non-citizens have been granted the right to vote, just like non-citizens.
If they owned property?
Well, no, not exclusively. Like there was a period called declarant alien suffrage before the Civil War, where the rule in most of the Midwestern states, like Minnesota and the Western states, was if you declared that you were on the pathway to citizenship, they would allow you to vote, either in local elections or local, state, and federal, depending on the.
If these provisions that were passed by the local DC elected officials went into place, is it true that an illegal immigrant who's a felon could vote in DC?
I mean, I don't know. Most of the jurisdictions that have it, it's for non-citizens who are lawfully present.
But it would allow illegal immigrants to vote in DC?
I just can't answer. I don't know. All non-citizens. So I assume if they were willing to dare to put their name on a public list like that, it sounds like under the DC proposal they could.
Isn't it true that felons can vote under the DC rules that are?
I'm advised yes.
Ranking Member Raskin, you weren't proposing that we go back when you extolled the virtues of allowing people who weren't citizens to vote because they own property. You're not suggesting to go back to those rules, are you?
No, I was just trying to explain the history of it because.
So illegal felons allowed to vote in DC local elections? Wow. That's different than what we're talking about. I don't see how that's gonna, I don't even think that's gonna pan out. You know what I mean? So that's insane to even think about. Once you're, again, I keep repeating myself, it should be once you're done, you've served, but illegal felons that haven't completed, first of all, you got to get legal. Let's start there. Then like we skipping so many processes at this point, steps. Yeah, like no, first you got to get legal. All right, I got to turn the music off. It said convicted felons shouldn't be allowed to vote. They can't be trusted. Wow. It says, allow us to fully integrate back into society. We've served our time for these crimes we've committed. Voting is basic human rights. Oh, okay. Everybody makes mistakes. Not everyone gets caught, except people from all walks of life. Oh, okay. I thought she was saying they shouldn't be allowed to vote because I was about to go in. But what she says, I agree with, bro. Everybody makes mistakes. You know what I mean? And if you sitting here saying they shouldn't be allowed to vote, you act like you've never made a mistake in your life. You know what I mean? Now, what they did, they have to, there's repercussions for your actions, right? And they have to deal with that. True. And once they've served their time and their sentence and completed their rehabilitation and everything, what's the problem? Now, if they make another mistake or they do something else, then they'll go back, they'll lose all that type of stuff like that. I just think that's the way it has to be. Like, how do you just tell a person because you've done something, you no longer have this right? Huh? That's crazy, bro. Soon we'll hardly have not that many people allowed to vote.
If you are someone who, by your own admission, cares about freedom, then your number one focus should be making sure that felons have the right to vote. Because if you live in a society where someone who has been convicted of a felony cannot vote, the government now has incentive to make all sorts of things felonies.
That is true.
In order to strip that right from any demographic they would like. Roe v. Wade is a great example, because if you make abortions a felony, not only are things like elective abortions, which are still healthcare, they're just done to someone who is not actively dying. You successfully criminalized a health procedure that only women can undergo. And women who have miscarriages, which are medically known as a spontaneous abortion, it's a felony too. If you supposedly, or you say you care about freedom, but you do not care who those freedoms can be applied to, Well, you don't care about freedom. You care about privilege. If you are someone who, by your own admission, cares about freedom, then your number one focus.
She was dropping gems in this video. Like salute to her. Like, this needs to go viral. It's got 90,000 views, and more people need to hear and see this, because maybe you weren't thinking about it in this type of way, and you hear the way she just articulated it. Then maybe you'll see it in a different way. You need to hear it from different angles and different people. Like, that was like, bravo to her. Salute to her for that. It's another way of thinking about it that I wasn't even thinking about.
This is just a friendly reminder that if you are charged with a felony for having an abortion, you need to check your state's laws and regulations regarding voting, because it varies by each state on whether, because felons cannot vote. If you are in prison or jail or whatnot, you cannot vote. If you are on parole or probation, you cannot vote, and it varies by each state whether you can or cannot. The only states, I believe, are Maine and New Hampshire are the only ones where everyone can vote. And there are also states where you can only vote after you complete your whatever time that you're supposed to complete, and that you have completed probation or parole, whether you can vote again. And then there are also states where once you are convicted with a felony, you can never, ever vote again.
Those are the states I have an issue with, the ones that say you can never, ever vote again. I want to look back at that map. Voting rights for formerly incarcerated people. Some people with felony convictions cannot vote. People with felony convictions can vote up to completion of sentence. People in prison and on parole cannot vote. All other people with criminal convictions, including people on probation, can vote. People in prison cannot vote. Everyone else can vote. Everyone has rights to vote. All people with felony convictions are permanently disenfranchised. So the colors match up to the states as far as the voting rights go. So I need to take a look at this and know Georgia, where I live at, has the orange, which is people with felony convictions can vote upon completion of sentence. There you go.
A lot of people assume that since you are a felon, you can't vote. Actually, if you are a convicted felon, you are able to vote. Currently, right now, though, there are 9 states where if you're a felon, they take away your voting rights. So when I got out, I was able to get my felony voting rights back, and I am a registered voter. No, I'm not going to tell you who I voted for. Lastly, if you're a felon or not, man, go out there and vote, okay? Voting is literally our voice. A lot of people assume that since you are a...
And it's interesting, right? When you start dealing with and interacting with the judicial system and different things like that, that stuff becomes important to you. You start, when your life is on the line and different things like that, it starts becoming very, very important. Whereas before you might have taken it for granted. So you'll see more people who've done time or had interactions with the law start speaking up and saying, you know what? I need to be on top of this. I've had this run-ins with this judge, this run-ins with this type of, like this law and this. I need to pay attention. I need to start, you know what I mean, voting and knowing what's going on. So
forget about vote by mail. How about vote by jail? Squad Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley introducing a bill that would let people convicted of a felony to vote in federal elections, including criminals currently locked up. Pressley also wants to lower the age at the ballot box by letting 16-year-olds vote.
A historic, brand new, first of its kind bill that will end the stain of felony disenfranchisement in America and guarantee the right to vote for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated citizens. Our bill is a reflection of bold, progressive, democratic values. Republicans and the Supreme Court stopping at nothing to undermine voting rights and to exclude Black and brown folks from participating in our democracy.
Our justice system has not been equally fair to all our citizens. Denying people the right to vote, they're paying their price if they're in jail.
Jesse, criminals are bad, but let's be honest, 16-year-olds are worse. We can't let 16-year-olds vote. That's like, they don't even have, their brains aren't even formed.
I agree.
trying to think back.
It's the prefrontal cortex.
That's right. You have to be.
I'm trying to think back to when I was 16. I could not pause that video for nothing. I was trying to think back to when I was 16, and I was not into it. I wasn't knowledgeable of anything or any of that type of stuff. But that's just me. There are some 16-year-olds who are well aware. They grew up in households whose parents really talked to them, had conversations, sat down with them, and all that type of stuff. That just didn't happen in my household. But I just can't blanketly say all 16-year-olds are just immature and shouldn't have a right to vote. So I don't know how this is going to play out.
18 to enlist, buy a pet, get a tattoo, get a lottery ticket, or sign a contract. You have to be 21 to adopt a child, buy tobacco, buy alcohol, buy weed, or gamble. 16 is way too early.
But you can change your gender at 6.
That's true.
Yeah.
So now, if you're in prison, all my prison pen pals, that have been writing me and that I write to back and send them photos.
Yes.
They say they can't wait to get out of prison to vote for Trump. And you don't believe me? So I think it should just be left to the states. And if you do serve your time, if you come out, I believe you should have the right to vote. And that's all I have to say about that.
To quote the judge, aren't they trying to expand their base beyond, dead people?
Well, yeah, it tells me that they're losing their base without telling you that they're losing their base. I have a couple of thoughts. First of all, you want to reduce the voting age to 16, but which means that you have enough of a cognitive, formation that you can decide who should be, the president, who should be this, who should be that. But you shouldn't be responsible for criminal activity. They keep raising the age of young people to be charged with a crime, but now they want to lower it for you to be able to vote, which makes no sense. But I think that the most important thing is this issue of felons being able to vote. There are some states where a felon cannot vote depending upon the severity of the conviction. You've got like Wyoming, Alabama, Tennessee, Virginia, Arizona. But then there are other states like Vermont, which says even if you're convicted of a felony, you can vote. So the states are different. In New York, you have to ask maybe for a certificate of relief from disabilities, where the court gives you the ability to vote again. But honestly, I believe, even though I'm a prosecutor and I was always the one looking to put them in jail, once they serve their time, they should be entitled to vote. Now,
see, I don't have an issue with that, with what she said. Like, yeah, once you've served your time and give them their rights back, bro, you're giving them their freedom back. You're giving them, you're allowing them to come back to society, re-enter society. Why shouldn't they have that? I don't understand that. Help me understand that.
Democrats have to be careful what they wish for. They're assuming that if you're in jail, you're going to vote for the Democrats. Except that's not working out, because a lot of people in jail are going to vote for Donald Trump. And I really believe that a lot of that has to do with the fact that they feel that they've been unjustly handled by the justice system, and so has Donald Trump.
Felons for Trump.
Yes, and so you've got the Democrats thinking this is going to be great for them. It may be just the opposite.
Harold, in the green room, you said that the people who should vote only should be on death row. You said you just want only death row voters because they have nothing to lose.
You share so much that I share in the green room.
But you have a problem with teenage voters, don't you?
Well, I think 16 is too young. I'd agree with the judge on that. I think you gave some metrics. We don't charge people with crimes at that young of an age. It's certainly, do people have a great enough understanding? The argument other side is that kids go to school. Politicians lie every 2 years or 4 years about how they're going to improve the education system, and the jury's still out. Actually, the jury's decided they've not done that.
Yeah.
So I think young people may
don't pay taxes.
May have a case or something. Well, some people say that a lot of people don't pay taxes.
Some states.
The prison thing. When you get out of prison, you should be able to vote. I mean, I think there should be a restoration of all one's rights. If they serve their time and pay their penalty,
that's right.
That should all be restored. That's something we can. I think 4 of us have agreed. I'll hear from Dana here in a second.
Well, I'll take care of that, Harold. Jeez, Louise. He's away for a couple of days, thinks he owns a table. Dana, isn't the big picture here? It's not about voting. It's that everything we're doing these days is about criminals. It's like we don't hear about we don't hear about the victims anymore.
Right.
It's just like I introduced a law. I don't know if you remember this, where victims get 3 votes.
You did?
Yes, it was.
Assault me.
So I think a couple of things. One, I like it that the states get to decide because I think that makes up our system best. I also think that states should be allowed to decide what to do about repeat offenders, right? So if someone has committed multiple felonies and they've given up their opportunity to be a part of society, then I don't know if a state should say to give them their rights back, but I think the state...
I don't agree with that. Repeat offenders, they get more time. They go in there for more rehabilitation. You lose your rights. You come back out. If they deem that you're allowed to come back home or re-enter society, then you get your rights back. You can't just say that because they're going in there to serve more time for another crime committed. So they're losing everything and receiving more time. So when they come back, you're hoping they are rehabilitated this time, which we needed to talk about the prison system, and they should receive their rights back. What do you mean? How many times can you get a DUI? So you're saying, okay, I get a DUI, I should never be able to get my license back. Like, I'm just saying, like, bro, either you learn your lesson or you're going to be in there, and then probably one of them times you go in there, you're going to be in there for the rest of your life. Then you'll never have your rights back. I'm just saying. I don't know. I think this needs to be continuously discussed and get everybody's side and opinion on it. Y'all let me know yours, all right? In the comment section, leave a like, share the video, subscribe, and stick around and stay tuned. Till next time, I'm gone.